Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your daily market insight video here on Monday, February 7th. This is Hunter Mozingo coming to you a little after 5 minutes past the market close here, 4:07 p.m. Eastern time to be exact in Jacksonville. And today we saw the choppy trading and the volatility continue on in the markets, but we're going to take a look at a possible change in character in cryptocurrency over the last 3 or 4 or 5 days or so that I think is really important. Additionally, we're going to look at the standout stocks from today. We're going to look at a couple of new buys we made today, as well as some of the big laggards. So we're going to get into all of that good stuff, all the charts here in just a moment. But first, let's talk about what just happened, right? I mentioned the choppy trading, early strength fades as the day went on, and we actually had a really poor close, really sharp down close, if you will. S&P pulled back about 1% or so, I'd say, in the last 30 to 40 minutes of the market being open. So like I said, that choppy trading, the volatility continues. The early strength this morning and a lot of G6 names and just a lot of names in general faded as the day went on. So in the performance section, we've actually got some unique things standing out today. So the G6, believe it or not, the sum of the 6 ETFs actually came out to being exactly flat today. And so did the Dow. The Dow Jones Industrial Average finished exactly flat today. So you don't see that too often. You don't see the orangish yellow here on the performance tab. The S&P down about 1/3%, roughly. The Q's down 0.8%. Mid caps also flat, and the Russell 2000 up 0.5%. And that's really because we saw oils for the most part strong, and financials and banks having a decent day as well. So market state, no change there. Uptrend as of that 131 follow through day. We have not undercut even the 131 follow through days lows yet, or closed below those. So uptrend 131 follow through day stays the same here on market state. We'll look at the charts and kind of look at that in just a second too. And then no changes to the trend gauge as of right now either. Market leaders for the most part still acting pretty well. That 21/21 list showing some constructive signs of life here, and that is continuing on. And then no changes here on the short term, no changes here on the medium term, or the long term for today's video. So before we get to the charts quickly, let's highlight Revere and myself here in the middle. If you have any questions about something I cover in this video, or about something you just have a general question about, whether it's the market, a stock, something you are researching yourself, doesn't matter, just send me an email. I'd be happy to answer your questions or discuss that with you. Or if you're interested in what we do at Revere, what our approach is, what our investment thesis is, that type of stuff, you can reach out to me, Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's get right into the charts. And we're going to start here with semiconductors, as they were showing a pretty good bit of strength as the day progressed. And you'll see as we go through a lot of these charts that faded as the day came to a close. But nonetheless, NVIDIA is still up almost 2% on a day where the S&P was down. You're going to see a lot of these charts are very similar in the sense that they had a really sharp move down, and now they're just kind of coming out of that, trying to get back above some resistance, some key moving averages, and NVIDIA, a good representation of that here. Up about 2% today. AMD, similar story, was showing relative strength for most of the day, and then finished pretty weak, but back above the 21, 2 consecutive closes above the 21. And then we also had an earnings reaction in the semiconductor world today on semiconductor. As you can see, not finishing at the top of the range, but still up 8.5%, pretty big volume up until the last little bit here, not acting very well. And I do apologize, I skipped right over the indices. So we're going to go backwards here and look at the S&P. So we've already knocked out semiconductors. We'll get to the rest of the stuff here in just a little bit, but I'm going to go back to the SPY here because I just accidentally skipped over the indices. So SPY down about 1/3% today, like we said, rejected kind of here at this overhead 21. You can see that green line, how that's kind of acted as resistance the last couple of days here, but just kind of in this range here between the 200 and the 21, just kind of sandwiched, looking for direction. So I talked about it last week on Thursday's video, as well as the podcast. From the upside perspective, you want to see a move over today's high over Friday's high, get back above that 21. Conversely, you're watching Friday's low. That's going to be really, really important on most every stock, as well as all the indices we're going to look at. So Friday's low imperative to the downside, as well as Friday's high. If you're a bull, you want to get above that if you're if you're a bear, or if you're looking at the bear case, you don't want to see this low break in here, right? This is important. It's going to be right there with the 200-day. So it's going to be a pretty similar story here on the Qs. You can see just kind of not really making a decision as far as what direction here we're going to go, just in this range. We want to see this 350 level hold as well. That's going to correspond roughly with the lows from Friday. Conversely, if we're going to move higher, we want to see a move above these highs here, roughly 362, 361, get back above the 8, possibly get back above the 21 and the 200 as well. DIA, as I mentioned, flat today. The ETF is a little bit different, but similar story, just sandwiched here, not really doing anything, sandwiched between these moving averages, looking for a definitive move in regards to direction. And so a strong move over Friday's and today's high would be what I would be looking for to the upside. Alternatively, we're watching Friday's lows, as I said, on all these indices. And we'll go through IWM and MDY quickly here as they look the worst of the major indices. IWM, we've talked about it. This 200 level is absolutely imperative. IWM getting helped out a little bit by banks and oils today, trying to get back above that 8-day exponential. You can't see it very well, but it's more or less closing right on it right here. And then MDY, relatively similar pattern, right on the 8-day exponential, trying to get back above that 21, which was initially resistant. So big takeaway on the indices here. Friday's low, very important. Friday's high and today's high, very important. So you want to be setting alerts around those levels. At least that's what I'm looking for on these indices. I want to know when those lows get broken or when those highs get taken out. So let's go back to individual stocks here. And I apologize about that, but we're going to run through these positive names really quick. So ZIM has been a leader, continues to be a leader. The shipping industry group, one of the top groups here in MarketSmith. You can see the fundamentals, look at the revenue, look at the EPS, and price is reflective of that. This is acting very well, up 3% today, above average volume. Jets, we also saw airlines and cruise lines have a nice day today, up about 3%. Not a great chart, but big time relative strength today. You can see the gap up here, as well as other travel related stocks showing some strength, right? Like Expedia, those types of names. MOS, Mosaic, we talked about this on Friday's video, hanging in there really nice after this huge move up, 10% here, and just big time relative strength, as you can see, since this move right here, getting pretty vertical on the RS line, up 1.5%, while the markets were for the most part down today. Mosaic showing some strength. We had the oil names that were not the exploration and production names showing big time strength today. So names like Chevron, names like Halliburton, Exxon, these types of names were really where the strength was at today. SLB, another name in the oil and gas field services group, these were where the big time strength was. The oil and gas production or exploration and production ETF, not as much the strength. As you can see, this ETF actually down today. So the names like DVN, FANG, those struggling a little bit today, while those other areas of the oil and gas industry were showing strength. We also had SLV and gold have a decent move up today. You can see the gap up here on silver, up about 2.5%, and then GLD also making a decent move back above those moving averages. One of the top names in the gold space here, NEM, Newmont Corporation, also having a strong day today. So some signs of life in the gold world. Financials wise, we have Wells Fargo and Charles Schwab making RS line new highs here. So RS line making a new high on Wells Fargo before price. That's something you always want to pay attention to. And then Schwab, it's going to be a relatively similar looking pattern here. Same type of thing, RS line new high before price. So some strength out there in the big financial part of the world. We've also seen this insurance group maintain some really nice relative strength. AIG up 1.5% roughly today on a day where the S&P was down. A BBV, AbbVie, one we talked about, one I believe Alex has mentioned at one point or another, a medical company, pharmaceutical type of company, as you can see, but really phenomenal relative strength here. Look at the way this line is sloping upward and has continued to slope upwards since last October. A few more positive names here, and I'm going to almost be done. I'm very close. XLE, one of the top performing sectors today. XBI, another one of the top performing sectors today. really an oversold or beaten up one here that's gotten really volatile. So do with that information as you will. But XLE and ITA, really two of the best looking or performing sectors today. So ITA boosted by some of that travel, aerospace and defense having a good day. Boeing had a good day. And then XLE, I mentioned those bigger conglomerate type of oil names showing relative strength today. And additionally, we made 2 new buys today. So we started a position in Nucor here after this vertical recovery of the moving averages on massive volume following the EPS here, as you can see. So a nasty shakeout with much higher volume on the recovery, reclaiming these key moving averages here. And then secondly, Blackstone, we initiated a position on this one, a similar type of pattern, a nasty shakeout with big time volume to recover the moving averages in a vertical type fashion. So 2 new positions. And before we get done with the stuff that was strong today, how could we forget about crypto? So I mentioned a possible change in character for crypto, and really, and maybe GBTC will be better to show this to you guys here. So what we want to talk about here with crypto is not so much the fact that it's had a really nice last 2 days, Friday and then today, but more so the fact that it's showing significant relative strength versus the market, which has not really been the case for the better part of the last 3 or 4 months, call it since November, right? So since November, this has been about as weak as, call it ARKK, small cap growth, whatever it is. But over the last couple of days, we've seen Bitcoin diverge a little bit from the NASDAQ and the S&P. And while the NASDAQ and the S&P have struggled intraday or pulled back overnight on the futures, whatever the case may be, Bitcoin has hung in there and remained very constructive and has continued to move higher. Even today, showing some really nice relative strength intraday while the indices were pulling in, and then ultimately going up to 43 and 44K on Bitcoin. So a little bit of a changing character, and you can see it reflected on these moving averages. And what do I mean by that? This is the first time GBTC has gotten above the 21 EMA since November, right? Since this high over here, or closed above the 21 EMA, excuse me. And we'll go back to BITO, which is the new Bitcoin ETF, and it's the same story. This is the first time that this ETF has closed above the 21, and it's also breaking this huge downtrend line here since November. So does that mean it's going to be off to the races? I don't know, but I do know this is a big deal to break this downtrend line to get back above the 21, and it's showing some significant relative strength versus the market. So I wanted to bring that to you, a visual representation of what that change in character looks like. You see the volume here on Bitcoin, as well as the way it's acting relative to the markets. I know that RS line is kind of tough to see, but basically going vertical here the last 2 days. So some positive developments for cryptocurrency. We'll see over the course of this week and the coming weeks how that plays out. But for right now, a positive divergence for Bitcoin showing some strength versus the market. Quickly here, we're going to go through some of the not so pretty names today. Bros, one that we own, had a really strong move early this morning, but faded as this is one of the high beta names. I mentioned that early strength faded as the day went on. This is probably the poster child for that fade, as you can see. So a high of around 63, finished around 56, but not necessarily out of the ordinary if you know the character of the stock. This is a very volatile stock. CF, another name we own, just having a weak day today compared to its peers, but this is something that the stock does. A little bit of a wonky, wild trading name, but obviously can go on very strong moves. But nonetheless, today, CF weak. Matador, this is an oil and gas exploration and production, like I mentioned. Weak today, along with DBN and CPE is another one, Callon Petroleum, just to show you here that these had a tough day while some of those bigger oil names had a good day. And then last thing here, Facebook continues to head lower, down another 5% today. So you can see the gap down day, the low was 235, and we are now at 225 roughly. So continue down another $10 from the low of the gap down day. Facebook not looking pretty. Netflix also a weak day today, down about 2% or so. Obviously, this is another gap down. We covered it in the earnings aftermath video. And then lastly, Google not necessarily responding the way you would want it to on this gap either, getting very close to filling that gap, as you can see here. So It's not all pretty out there, but there are some bright spots. So that is going to wrap today's video up. I will not be here on Thursday, so I believe Don will be filling in for me on Thursday's video, which also means I will not be on the podcast this week. So this is my only video of this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you all when I get back on next Monday's video. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
This conference will now be recorded.